What are some ways that you can go about researching historical fiction? The answer, of course, is going to depend very much upon your period. If you're looking at relatively recent history, a fantastic place to start is just going back and looking at old books, old movies. Go to a vintage clothes store, try on some clothes from the 1940s or the 1920s or whenever you're writing about. Go to your library and look at microfiche and read newspapers from the era. Of course, the further back in time you go, the more those primary sources are going to become harder to come by. 19th century, not so bad. There's still a lot out there. If you were writing about 19th century, Victorian London, for instance, you can go to London today and kind of squint your eyes and still picture the way it would have been in that era. If you were writing about Medici Florence, someone like Sarah Dunant, for instance, you can go to Florence today and you barely have to squint your eyes and you can see what it looked like. If, like me, you're writing about ancient Greece, things have changed a little bit more. I didn't actually go to Greece when I was first writing The Golden Mean because I knew that the landscape had changed completely. The buildings that I was writing about, the palaces, were gone. They weren't standing anymore. The city that I was writing about had been a port city in the ancient world, and in the ensuing 2,400 years had silted up, and that site, that archaeological site, was now a kilometer inland. So it's surprising, where you can and can't go to find your sources. What I did find useful when I was going back that far were primary sources. I loved finding ancient voices talking about the ancient world, and that for me was the sort of corollary of going to the vintage store and trying on the clothes from the time. I felt as though I got that just genuine whiff of the past through those voices, rather than always just doing book learning and reading what other people had to say about the people 200 years ago who had this to say about that thing that happened 500 years before. As much as you possibly can when you're doing historical fiction, try and locate those immediate details. Try and get the smells and the sights and what the fabric feels like. Try and hear the voices that spoke in their own words at that time.